I won't be here.
A couple packs of broccoli.
Well, thank you all for being here. It's a great turnout. Tonight we're going to have Russell Wilder, Dave Bryan, Mr. Abbott here,
Dave Byrne.
Dave Byrne.
Yeah.
The easy way.
Yeah.
I'm dyslexic. Please forgive me. So, if y'all please join me in a prayer before we get started, and then we'll have the pledge. Lord, we pray for your Holy Spirit to heal our fractured nation. Heal the division that separates each of us and remove all obstacles towards authentic unity. Lord, we ask that you give us fresh opportunities for renewal and true solidarity for the common good of our nation and for generations to come. In your holy name, bring us back to one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Amen.
And 2 brand new flags for us.
Yeah.
Y'all stand for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank y'all. I'm going to turn it over here to Ronnie here.
All right. Well, hey, thank you all, everybody, for being out here today. We're lucky to have 3 people who stepped up here to run to replace Representative Jody Lott in District 131. And we got a lot of elections going on around here coming up recently, so to clarify, this is going to the regular primary ballot on May 21st with a possible runoff on June 18th to go to be the Republican nominee for the general election on November 5th. So we've got 3 gentlemen here who've stepped up to throw their hat in the ring, and we as the Young Republicans wanted to have an opportunity to get them together to get to know who these individuals are, because what this group specifically prides itself on is being able to turn our passion and interest in politics and in this community into some productive action for these candidates in the area. So by giving us an opportunity to get to know them, that's the first step in figuring out who we might want to be able to help on an individual level. And we don't necessarily envision this being a debate per se, but more of a forum where we get everybody together and ask some hot-button questions and let them articulate who they are and what they see happening. So the way we're going to do it is give each of them 2 minutes per question that we have here, and look forward to learning from them. We have curated these questions from our Young Republican group, so we're not going to take any from the public here. We're just going to kind of open it up and let them express themselves. So we'll try to wrap it up here by 6, and then if anybody wants to stick around and mingle afterward, we can do that as well. But again, thank you everybody for being here. So we'll start and keep it simple. If you all could introduce yourself, and when you do so, please let us know why are you running for this seat. So we'll start with you, Mr. Adams.
Hey, first off, I want to thank you and our Young Republicans for having us, letting us get out and start telling our story. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm Paul Abbott. I'm a lifelong Georgian, born and raised in Waycross, Georgia, down around Okefenokee Swamp. My whole life, since turning 20, after getting my associate degree at Waycross Junior College, I enlisted in the Georgia Army National Guard as an artillery soldier. And from that, I went on to Georgia Southern College, entered the ROTC program there, received my commission as second lieutenant. Didn't have enough field artillery, so I became a field artillery officer. And I did that for educational benefits, and I wound up staying 22 years. And I'm glad I did. It's what made me the leader I am today. I have been in Columbia County in the mid-90s. I taught at Martinez Elementary and Riverside Middle School as a special ed teacher. I have 20 years in the classroom as a special education teacher. Worked with every kind of disability possible. Was recruited to come up and take an administrative job for Richmond County Schools. And I've been running the buses for Richmond County since 2015. That in itself has been a very interesting career change, but it's taught me a lot. It's taught me even more how to work with people. So, that's kind of my professional background. Why do I want to do this? I have always been fascinated with politics. I'm getting ready to retire. I'm gonna have time to commit to you in District 131, to have the time and the commitment, and the leadership to lead this district. Thank you.
Ron, go ahead. So thank you, Ronnie, for having us. Thank you to the Young Republicans. As Paul said, appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is David Byrne. I came to Georgia at this point about 6 years ago. A lot of us, maybe some of us, arrived because of Fort Gordon. So I too was in the National Guard. I was a cyber operations officer. So I came early during when cyber operations command was being stood up, and that's what brought me here. I grew up in a small farm town, actually in the western United States, very small, about 5,000 people. So I can definitely say I grew up with small town values. You know, the values that kind of make our country great, in my opinion. I've been interested in politics for a long time, but I never really acted on it. I kept going through my career. I was in the Army, did several stints on active duty here at Fort Gordon. After I came here for active duty about 6 years ago, this became my home, and I stayed here. I bought some property here while I was here the first time on active duty and decided to stay because it's just nicer. I came from California. It's nicer than California. I don't want to be there. You can't choose where you're born, you can choose where you stay. So, although I did come from the nice part, which is Northern California, very different from San Francisco. So, I went on, eventually I got out of the National Guard and became a contractor. I've traveled all over. I've seen how different parts of the world are run, seen how different states are run. And while I was doing that, I still saw the issues that were ongoing. And so for about 2 years now, I've just been documenting what I would do to change the problems and address the problems that we have. And that's became the basis for why I'm running is, you know, I want to bring actual solutions to the table and be a solutions-based candidate, not a really not just running to be there. Not, you know, I want to bring solutions to the table.
Good, sir. I'm Russell Wilder. I'm Top Trip Cigar up here in Martinez. I too want to thank the Young Republicans, A, for this opportunity, and B, for all the work you've done in recent election cycles to help get Republican candidates elected. I like to think that you single-handedly helped push Jesse Stone over the top in his race for Superior Court judge, and the whole community owes you a debt for that. That was a great selection for Superior Court, so I appreciate all those things about y'all. I'm a small business owner, Top Shelf Cigar down here on Columbia Road in Martinez for almost 20 years now. Prior to that, I worked in a nuclear power industry, first processing waste, and then at Georgia Power Company in the chemistry lab for about 17 years. They had, my first job out of school, they had me all over the United States. I worked in New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Wisconsin, Illinois, and kind of like David said, I've been all over this country on vacation, hunting, and working. There's no place like this area. I love this area. This area is beautiful. My dad was in the Army. I did not serve in any capacity in the military, but 14 years as an Army kid, it's pretty daggone close. Lived in Ethiopia, we lived in Panama where my little sister was born, and in Germany just before Daddy PCS here, which something about this place, guys in their Army career here in Augusta, Georgia, they want to stay in the CSRA. It's a great place to live. And that's part of the reasons why that I'm running. The community's been great to me. This living here, just those aspects, but my business thrives and it's done well because of Columbia County. And I feel obligated to give back. And that is why I want to take all the community service I've done in the library board, planning commission, green space advisory, youth leadership, Columbia County, all these programs that serve this community. I want to take that now to the next level in Atlanta and continue to help this community and offer myself whatever way I can to serve Columbia County.
Thank you. Big development here in the county is that we soon will be having our own hospital that's being built up there in the Gateway area. But y'all who have been here for a while know that the development of that hospital was long delayed by Certificate of Need regulations, which is also a hot topic down there at the Capitol. Do you support repealing Certificate of Need regulations? And if so, would you compromise on Medicaid expansion type reforms to facilitate that repeal as is being discussed? And we'll start with you, Dave.
So certificate of need, it's very complicated. I was actually at the hearings here in Augusta for certificate of need that they're currently hosting. In my general opinion, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'm a healthcare expert, but from my understanding, there's no need for it anymore. And all of the evidence in different states that have gone through with repealing certificate of need has seen a large increase in the availability of healthcare. The fact of the matter is, Georgia is ranked the 41st in terms of hospital availability, and we still have certificate of need, so we're doing something wrong. So we definitely need to look at changing course. So I would say, yes, I am in favor of repealing certificate of needs, or at least large provisions of it. And then regarding Medicaid expansion. So Medicaid it's very important in my opinion for large swaths of our society, and I know a lot of hospitals rely on it. Right now, for example, at the federal level, they're debating $8 billion in cuts to Medicaid, and that's going to hurt a lot of safety net hospitals. So I'd say we need to ensure that we maintain proper levels of Medicaid in order to ensure that our safety net hospitals in Georgia, especially those outside of our metro areas, are able to continue operations.
Russell?
Certificate of need process is what put us while we don't have a hospital up and operating right now. The plans to do this started a long time ago, but hung up in court. We're finally scratching dirt of it. Certificate of need needs to go on. It's out, like Dave said, it's outdated. It almost creates a monopoly process because of the way that it works. They ask surrounding hospital, well, how's your bed availability? And if they all go on, we're good. We don't need a competitor down the corner. So it's something that's outdated and needs to go. I would not, under any circumstances, compromise expanding Medicaid to get that across the finish line. I'm against certificate of need, but not to the point that I would embrace Medicaid expansion. It's not fiscally responsible. Our governor's fought it the whole way. The legislature has kept us from doing that, and I'm going to follow that same path. Medicaid expansion is just not good for Georgia.
So the certificate of need was established in the 60s. And, I think then it was a government overreach. We all know anytime the government gets involved, it doesn't go well for the favor of the people who get it. But certificate of need is a great example. It's outdated. I read a report not long ago that said, from 2018, it said if Georgia did not have a certificate of need, we'd have 50 more ambulatory surgical centers and 7 more hospitals in Georgia. That's more access, folks. The fact that a hospital has to ask for 1 more bed to be added is insane. So absolutely, certificate of need has no place in Georgia anymore. As far as Medicaid expansion, let's delve into that. We were saved in 2014, 2015 when the government enticed states, we'll give you the money for it. Guess what they did 3 years later? They started pulling the money for it, the states were on the hook. In 2019, Georgia would have been on the hook for $560 million, just based on 2019. I don't know what it is today. We're doing more research. I would guess it'd be close to $1 billion each year. And guess what the federal government's likely to do? Produce it even more. And guess what that does? It puts it on our backs. So no, I'm not in favor. But also, expansion of Medicaid also traps people in welfare state. And this is how. If I'm at the threshold and I get a raise, I turn the raise down because I don't use Medicaid. We need to incentivize people getting and helping them get health care in a different manner than expanding Medicaid. We need to get people out of the welfare state. So no on the continuation of certificate of need, and absolutely not on Medicaid expansion.
So the governor made a lot of news at his state address on Thursday, and one of the big announcements that he made was an intention to get large capital investments to establish a new medical school at the University of Georgia and a dental school in Savannah with the Georgia Southern brand on it. Given the importance of the Medical College of Georgia and AU's health campus to our region specifically, do you support such investments? And assuming the governor is successful, how will you act to maintain our region's influence in these areas? Russell?
This is, I'm not really sure what the impact would be at MCG. Everybody around here told us for years, we don't want to move anything off that campus, but I don't think what the governor's suggesting is taking anything away from us. So my understanding is we're just gonna add more capacity to create healthcare professionals in Athens and the dental school in Statesboro. The dental school, the Georgia Dental School and the Medical College of Georgia are not gonna, their capacity to turn out healthcare professionals is not gonna be reduced by these governor's initiatives. But I would like to talk more to people in that field, because I'm not gonna bring stuff up. It's just not something I'm deeply familiar with. Were I to be faced with a floor vote, you bet I would get my homework done and I would know which one to move on.
Paul?
It's my understanding they're trying to build capacity, to recruit doctors, because if you go to school here, you like, you know, I'll be honest, I love Savannah, I worked there for a year, absolutely love Savannah, Georgia. So if I was going to medical school there, you'd be hard pressed to leave that place. I'm telling you, it's magical. But it's my understanding they're just trying to build capacity. You know, you always want to build a reserve. You always want to be the state that has the doctors, and they've got to choose to leave. But like Russell, I'd like to delve a little more into the rationale of exactly why he did that. But it's my understanding today that it's to build capacity and create another place for, you know, to get doctors from for our Georgians.
So I largely agree with both of them. My understanding of the other university campuses that want to be stood up is the others will have 60 students for the school, and Augusta University has 190. So it is definitely a subset and smaller, and there are still going to be significantly more specialties at Augusta University. That's my understanding. Of course, I would need, as both the other gentlemen said, I would need to do more homework in order to verify that. At the end of the day, something I heard when I was in the Northeast United States is the South as a whole is a healthcare desert, and we should not really, of course we want to protect our community and protect the gem that we have, but we can't do that at the cost of reducing healthcare education in the South. We need to keep increasing our ability to have qualified doctors who want to live in Georgia and want to stay here, and we need to increase our ability. So if faced with, you know, yes or no, then absolutely I'd expand it. But of course, as the other gentleman said, we want to make sure that we don't lose those students to Savannah, which is on the coast. I'd say most human beings love to live on the beach. You can go down to Tybee Island, and of course they'd rather live there. A bunch of college students, of course they want to go there. So yes, we have to make sure we protect our community, but also we need to make sure we increase our ability to bring good doctors to Georgia as a state.
So the governor also declared that this is the year where school choice legislation will be passed at the legislature, but didn't provide necessarily details as to what that would entail. If you ask your average group of conservative activists, the majority would say that they are in favor of school choice in general. So I ask all of you, what reforms in this area, if any, do you support? And given the power and influence of the Columbia County school system, which is generally against such reforms, how would you balance those interests? Start with you, Paul.
So, 30 years as an educator, I've worked in a lot of Title I schools. I've worked in schools that were more affluent. I've worked in schools that were very low in socioeconomic level. Let's be clear. I work in Richmond County. We have some of the best schools in the country. We have some of the worst schools in the country. That's a fact. What parents need, and I agree with a lot of what the governor's trying to do, and we just need to figure out maybe a little different way, but parents need to be able to get away from underperforming schools. Now, we have House Bill 251. That's been in effect for a long time. It's school choice within a school district. If you're at school A and you want your child to go to school B, you can put in, they have room, they can go. Parent has to provide transportation. Where you get into issues, parents performing schools, is the fact they have limited transportation. They have a really low socioeconomic background. So it's harder for them. And let's say that $6,000, $6,500 is a nice piece of money, but it's not enough to get them into a private school. Yeah, I think it's, yes, I definitely agree with school choice. I think parents need choices. Parents have a right for a choice. I just think, going back to the drawing board and maybe find a little bit different way. Whatever we give parents, it winds up being, there has to be accountability. There has to be accountability for the money. Okay? So yes, school choice, and I would temper that with specifically the way it's written right now, targeting those kids in underperforming schools.
So I 100% agree with Paul. Well, maybe not 100%, but mostly agree. The school choice is an absolute necessary, and I'll tell you why. Let me tell you a story. I was at Lowe's earlier this week. I was picking up a microwave. I was at customer service, and there was this lady there in order to interview for a job. I asked way too many questions of people I don't know. But I asked her, and I said, she happened to mention, or somehow it came up that she already had a job. She says, oh, is that a full-time job? Yeah, she already had a full-time job. And you don't mind, how much are you making? She's making $18 an hour, whatever her other job was. And she needed a second one. And she needed to do that because she needed to live in Columbia County, which had the more expensive housing than Richmond County. All the affordable housing and also bad areas are in Richmond County. Well, I shouldn't say all, but for the majority. And so this lady is having to live in Columbia County, where she really sounds like she couldn't afford, just because she has 3 kids that she wants in the Columbia County schools, and they're better. So I think that gives a snapshot of why school choice is absolutely necessary, because people should be able to live in an area that they can actually afford and still send their kids to a good school, and not need to get a second full-time job to be in a better district. It's that simple on school choice. However, I don't think it's the end. I think it's a temporary Band-Aid. You're going to have to time check me as I go on this. The real issue is the way we fund schools. Is that end or 30 seconds? All right. We need to look at how we're funding schools as a state. The fact that Richmond County schools, are bad, and because, property taxes, so questions that there are. So my young brother went to A.R. Johnson. It's a very good school. And we need to look at how we're funding schools to make sure that we can try to equalize that education so that school choice isn't even necessary. The school choice is a Band-Aid. We should make sure every public school is good, and the only way to do that is to make sure every single one is getting the funding it needs, either to increase in quality or maintain quality.
Well, I definitely support school choice. I mean, you should be able to use your tax dollars for education the way you see fit, within reason. It's got to be set up so that it doesn't create strains in any school system. Right now, there's a bill that's primarily targeted at socioeconomic people, people that are on the lower tier, SB 233, that provides a voucher, and I think the number was, I read it a month or so ago, $6,500 for you to be able to send your child anywhere. And I like the way the bill's written, because there's all kinds of checks to make sure where you spend the money, they're accredited, they're doing their thing, they're making their test scores where they need to be, so that the dollars are being spent wisely. That's, like I said, there's certain requirements for that. It's targeted primarily at the lower economic. But I think across the board, you should be able to send your kid where you think it's best, if it's at all practical. We can't have 900 kids in this county all sit decide they want to go to Lakeside. They don't have room for it. So it's got to be set up so you've got choice, but it doesn't put any undue burden on the local school district. As far as the school board's resistance to it, they've got their feet them. They don't want anybody tweaking it. We pass state law, they got to go with it. So it's not a question of what they want, what's good for the citizens of the state of Georgia.
Well, Dave, you brought up a topic that is near and dear to a lot of young Republicans' hearts, which is the affordability of housing. Aside from our president here, not many of us actually own a home, and with the rising prices of them, it's becoming harder and harder for first-time buyers to find themselves a place in the market. So what reforms at the state level would you support to make housing more affordable and accessible, both for the working class and the younger generation looking for their first home? I'm sorry, you did.
Okay, so to start, I have a lot of thoughts on this, so that's why I smile. To start, I would make it so that residential homes, and that includes single-family homes all the way to fourplex, could only be owned by American citizens and American permanent residents. Last week, I got a letter in the mail from a trust offering to buy my home for cash. There is no way, maybe one of you, maybe two, could compete with that on the open market. But with 8% interest, I'm going to go with the majority who cannot. So I want to take businesses out of the residential market. Now, there are some exceptions in my mind, and I have all this listed on my website, but I'll keep it short. S-Corps would be an exception, and that's basically it, because S-Corps can also only be owned by American citizens and American permanent residents. Please go look at my website. I have a whole rundown on breakdowns and protections, but largely, I just want American citizens and American permanent residents to own homes in the state of Georgia. It takes the capital out of competing, and people can start to own their own homes. There are some other measures and ideas that I have in place that address affordability. However, within the Columbia County and Richmond County district, there are affordable houses in the Augusta area. Columbia County is becoming more expensive, but Augusta. So we have to look at other issues before and start to raise the Augusta standard of living so that people feel comfortable moving back there and buying houses there. I'll briefly touch on a not so conservative idea of mine, which is basically tying wages to fair market rent rates. Basically makes landlords opposed to business interests in the region. It's a very complicated idea. Please come talk to me about it later if you're interested. But please.
I don't think the government should do a dang thing to make housing more affordable, other than get out of the way, don't put undue restrictions on builders, developers. This is a private sector issue. There's no place for the government to get involved in setting what houses should cost. So that's just where I'm at. Every product you buy has some small degree of regulation. A little bit of regulation when necessary is not a bad thing. Affordable housing, we need it. It's something you've got to have. Right now, a lot of the struggle you young folks are having is by inflation and all the money they pumped in. We went from, I got a 15-year note on my house 5 years ago for like 3%. There's not a 3% mortgage rate out there right now. It's come down. It's around 6.7 as of close of business Friday. But as far as the government intervention to create affordable housing, I don't like that pathway there. I don't like the government having too much control over any business or market. It creates cronyism, and that word, I don't think there's anybody here who's looking for that as an option in any product they buy.
So, let's be clear. I know, people talk about affordable housing in Georgia. Depending on which study you look at, Georgia has the 12th lowest cost of living in the nation, or the 13th. It's right in there, okay? So, what I see affecting Georgia is everybody moving from the blue states coming here, and, look at our population. It is increasing, okay? That puts pressure on what? Building houses. Now, what I don't agree with, I don't believe the government should be involved. If you want to see what rent and everything looks like with the government involved, look at California. We went out there to see my son in the Navy, a little 2-bedroom, kind of, it was a nice area, but just a basic 2-bedroom, 1-bath home was about $900,000. $900,000. But the government got involved. They subsidized everything. It's jacked up everything. If you want to see what the government looks like, they get involved in rent and all that. I'm just saying, so let's talk about this. There was a bill introduced last year, oddly enough by a Republican, and thank God it died, that wanted to dictate to local counties and commissions how you build your houses. You can't put all these restrictions. Nonsense. That is a local decision and should always be a local decision. So yes, no, I agree. We do need to look maybe at some little higher density that allow more people, but also we can't do, grow at the expense where we have the problems that we're just trying to fix here with growth and no roads and infrastructure.
So another topic that always comes up when you get a group of Republicans together is taxes. The governor announced some initiatives of trying to continue to lower the state income tax at his speech on Thursday. What is your position on taxes at the state level, specifically the state income tax? And then on top of that, would you support any further state-initiated relief for taxes at the local level? For instance, the lieutenant governor has also recently proposed things like capping the annual property tax increase to 3%. Russell, we'll start with you.
Definitely, you know, you look at the budget surplus we've operated with the last 2 years. Thank God the governor and the legislature are being smart about it. We're not gonna spend money on something that's gonna be an omnibus expense. You know, they sent a bunch of it back to us. They've got plans to do one-time spends with the balance of that, which is a smart thing to do with it. We built up our reserves, we gotta have that. We've got our reserves. So tax-wise, it's definitely time to look at how much are we taking in. We're coming up with this much extra every year. We need to trim it back. Don't trim it back too low because the recession will come at some point and your tax revenue will drop. So let's get it back. I would like to join the guys that are already in the legislature looking to get rid of the state income tax. Ideally, I'd like to compete with Florida, Texas, and Tennessee that have no state income tax. It's gotta work. We still gotta have money. We still gotta build roads. We still gotta pay state patrol. There's just a plethora of things that we all want and kind of take for granted. Taxes is how we fund that. So that's where I'm at. You know, let's cut it. Let's get rid of it if at all possible.
You know, the, House Bill 1437, which is, government signed taking it down to, 5.49, and by 2029, 4.99 is great for all Georgians. You know, having more money in your pocket is a great thing for everyone. I'm all for, the government getting enough money, just enough money to meet the needs of the people. I hate taxes, I hate when I gotta pay them, but it's part of life. What I don't wanna do is for Georgians to have to pay more. You see the surplus, I think we're a great spot to be in. I'd like to see some incentives, whether it's a state tax, a state sales tax, or some kind of incentive, because we have a lot of retirees that move here. And we know that on pensions and fixed incomes, money doesn't go as far, and healthcare costs are doing nothing but increasing every year. I'd like to see something to help a lot of retirees, maybe under certain thresholds of income, to help them, because what we don't want is the eventual burden of all this on them. I'd like to see some type of retirement tax. The government did a great job giving the military retirees an additional tax break. I'd like to see something like that for all retirees. No increase from Paul Ladd. You can believe me, I'm not George Bush. Read my lips. No increase in taxes.
I like it. Good?
Yeah.
So, let me start off with, I want a 0% tax. But, we can't have it, and not right now at least. I don't want to pay any taxes if I can help it. We have to be careful, as both gentlemen said, we have to be careful. We only have money to spend at the state level because of taxes, right? Unless you want the government to start competing with business, it's not really making money any other way. That's not how we do business in America, really. So, Georgia is already growing. People are moving to Georgia, as both these gentlemen put it. So we're not struggling to attract more talent, but we do have some pressing issues. I believe the surplus is $11 billion. I think with the new tax increase, decrease, I should say just flat tax, it's not really a decrease, change. It goes down to $9 billion. We just got done talking about how we have schools that are some of the worst in the nation. In my mind, I have a really hard time reconciling, okay, we need to, lower taxes when we're not struggling to attract talent. People are moving from other states to come here, and we have failing schools. So, yes, I want to pay less taxes. I hate paying taxes. But I think we need to address the issues we have first before we really continue to get rid of our surplus. If we have a surplus, let's put it to use. Let's fix the failing schools. I'm just going to say, Columbia County now, The city roads are, by my understanding, they're paid for more by the city, and the state pays for the highway. It's my understanding of general infrastructure across the United States. And the feds kick in some for hot freeways, but the reality is, okay, let's look at expanding our infrastructure. The roads in Grovetown are atrocious in terms of traffic. They can barely support the houses that are being built in the subdivisions. So there's a lot of issues. Let's address those with the surplus and have no issues, and then lower taxes.
So the state offers a wide variety of tax incentives to encourage economic development in various industries, and there has long been discussion at the legislature about the actual efficacy and efficiency of those tax incentives. Do you support the concept of giving tax incentives for economic development in general, and then any of them for any particular industry, such as the film tax credit? And are there any that you feel need to be introduced or that you would fight for particularly for this area? Paul, I'll start with you.
Talk about economic development. The other leg of that we talk about is taxes. Low taxes and economic development builds small business. Because small businesses drive the engine, okay? That's where we get our innovation. That's where we get our choices in a lot of things. Either small businesses move with change, they develop and are great, but that's the engine that gives us a lot of choices in our society. So I think we do need to continue to look at ways to help small businesses, because what they said, the large number of them fell in the first 35 years. So yeah, we need to make every effort possible, whether it's access to capital, whether it's training, the whole gambit of setting those businesses up for success. Because you could look at Columbia County, look at the businesses here, and that's part of what makes our community and county great, is that we have this great, robust economic development here, not only at the industrial level and corporate levels, but down to the small businesses with the roofers and plumbing, HVAC. We have one of the best collections. If you want a plumber, the sky's the limit, and that's a great place to be in, and that's where we want to keep it.
Small businesses are in need of tax incentives. It's hard to start a small business. I've tried, been mildly successful, had a few employees along the way. Taxes, when you're trying to get started, are one more big concern at the end of the year. You're trying to keep growing, and I don't think we need to pay companies like Amazon. We have a big Amazon warehouse, and I'm going to admit, I don't know if they got subsidies, but I know that when they were doing their headquarters, a bunch of states were offering them gross subsidies in order to come. It was quite embarrassing in my mind. So I will admit, I don't know if they got subsidies to bring Amazon, but Amazon doesn't need subsidies. They're massive. They're making tons of money. They don't need it. And so I would say I'm very opposed to these subsidies for large companies. Now, that being said, the right subsidies, small incentives. The film industry in particular is a boon to Georgia because people can see the beauty of Georgia, right? There are certain things, if it fulfills our need, then maybe it's appropriate, but by and large, these big companies don't need them. It's great for them, they'll accept them, but they don't need them. It's the small businesses that need them, and small businesses are what drive our communities forward.
I run a small business. I spend money to improve my business, to run my business. Every dollar I spend is looked at, what's my return on investment? Because that's what it's all about. Whether I'm going to buy a billboard or whether I'm going to buy a product from my store. A lot of my investments are good investments, and I can feel and see and count the dollar return. That's the way economic development incentives should be handled. Same thing. It is a good idea to incentivize if there's a return on investment. Right now, there's some questions about the movie industry tax credit. Is there a return on investment to the state of Georgia? And let's face it, is it bringing in more tax dollars than we're giving? That's what it's all about, not the revenue. Rivian governor put a package together to incentivize them to build that plant they're building between here and Atlanta. It's gonna be 7,500 jobs, not 7,500 McDonald's jobs, 7,500 manufacturing jobs and management jobs, good paying jobs. That is gonna bolster the revenues of the state, that local area, although some folks are against it. But it's gonna be good for our state. So to incentivize in that way, when we can actually put a number on it, it's gonna bring in this much revenue, as well as be good for our state and provide 7,500 good paying jobs. You know, better paying jobs probably than what they did at Amazon. So I definitely believe in economic development and support from the state and as far as tax incentives or what have you, as long as the dollars work. It's just like the way I run my business. If this is a good spend for the state of Georgia, by all means.
A topic that gets a lot of animation out of the Young Republican group is the march of this transgender ideology, especially in our youth population. Last year, Georgia passed a ban on gender-affirming care for minors. Do you support such action like that? Do you think more action is needed on this front at the state level? And would you support expanding such restrictions to the adult population as well? Dave?
So, I believe as an adult, you should be able to do whatever you want. It's your body as an adult. Once you pass 18, the state, in my opinion, has no right to tell you what to do with your body, as long as it doesn't affect somebody else. So as adults, no, completely off the board, no restrictions. I would never vote for that. I don't, unless you give me a really, really good reason of how it hurts someone else, but I don't think there is one. However, for children, it's entirely different. I think that we don't allow children to do a lot of things until they're 18. Technically, we allow them to join the Army at 17, but they're not even allowed to deploy until they're 18, right? All these restrictions that we place on them, you know, you're not an adult till you're 18, you can't make a decision for yourself. We restrict alcohol, we restrict tobacco, we restrict a number of other drugs. You know, so there's no reason that children can be deemed fit to make a life-changing decision. And I don't think it's right for parents to make that decision for them. You know, that's affecting another human being. You know, to save the children, sure, parents make the decision, but something like that is not saving the child. So for children, I'd say wait until they're 18. For adults, it's your body. Do whatever you want.
I'm pretty much along those lines. I'm not gonna want a vote to ever restrict whatever foolishness an adult wants to do with their body. There again, as long as it stays within the boundaries of them. You know, if you wanna have surgery and take drugs, change yourself because you don't believe the way you're made is the way God wanted you, hey, not my business. The law that we passed last year was a good law. Nothing under 18. You can't get a tattoo. I don't want you doing permanent life-altering decisions with medicine or surgery that they can't be undone. I've heard somebody that went through that changed their mind as an adult, and her story is heartbreaking. She's recovered fairly well from it, but when you're under 18, you know, no tattoos, no gender-affirming care. We've got that protection. I will never vote to change that if I'm elected.
Yes, you know, I was at Frontline back in December and heard the story of Chloe, young California girl at age 12. Her parents allowed her and kind of encouraged through the schools and everything, and she transitioned. And she's on her way back, transitioning back to a young lady. And it was a heartbreaking story. And that's one of the great examples of, you know, before age of 18, absolutely nothing. Don't even talk to a doctor. You can't talk to anybody about it. Talk to a counselor. You got some mental things going on, but nothing to change your body until you're an adult. And I want to take this a little bit further. We talk about transgenders. I want to keep them out of schools and reading the kids in schools and reading this crazy stuff that they're bringing in the classrooms. That needs to stop. Let's take a step further. Biological boys should not be allowed to play girls' sports at all. Let me give you some examples. A lot of people know this. In 2017, U.S. Women's National Soccer Team, one of the best women's soccer teams on the planet. Scrimmage, the football club of Dallas, under 15 club, got drummed 5-2 by 14-year-old boys. Let that sink in. 1998, other people know this. Serena Williams said, "I'll beat any male pro player over a rank of 200. This guy looked like a geek. He had glasses, and yeah, he beat both of them. One of them 6'1", 6'2", and he let them win those games. A mediocre male athlete can dominate women's sports. So no for any transition before 18. No, keep this stuff out of classrooms, and do not allow biological males to abuse girls."
Georgia has recently been listed as a judicial hellhole by various interest groups due to certain aspects of our law, such as our premises liability regulations. The governor had previously stated that tort reform was one of his big initiatives, but this week reiterated that he will actually be taking that up next year when one of you all will be taking this seat. So with that in mind, do you agree with this assessment of Georgia's judicial landscape, and would you be on board with the governor's efforts to reform, and what form would you think those might take? Russell?
I've been a tort reform guy for years, for decades, since I learned what tort was. It costs a lot of money for everybody. Drives up insurance costs for us, the consumer of a car insurance or home insurance. They say, I read recently, they say that cost of what average Georgian family spends a year, $5,300 of that cost is because of our loose litigation laws and the high cost of insurance. There's insurance carriers that don't want to do business in Georgia because of how loose our laws are. So I'm definitely all for, I'll support them. There again, you gotta read the bill, depending on how it looks, I'm definitely gonna support that. To go from where we are to straight loser pays, that may be a bit extreme, because we all need at some point, let's hope, nobody in this room, may need to access civil litigation. You can be harmed by someone being neglectful, and you need a remedy. Just suing a guy because he ran into your car, he broke the fender in the headlight, when you walked away without a scratch, that's got to go. We don't need all these frivolous lawsuits and these guys suing them because no need's there. You know, if you're run over by somebody with no insurance and you broke your back, you need to be made whole. I don't want to get rid of lawsuits altogether, but they need to make sense, and they don't need to make an extra 500 lawyers in Georgia money for just chasing ambulances.
So, like I told you, I run 217 buses for Richmond County, and I judge with the superintendent one time, tongue in cheek. So when I get to an accident, and I'm working, I realize the driver failed to yield or something, I said, either me or my safety coordinator stands at the door. She said, "Why do you do that?" I said, "So that nobody else can get on the bus and say they were on the bus when the accident happened." Nobody in here has gotten more letters from the Hawk Law Group than Ken Nugent and I have. Okay? It's out of control. I've had a bus driver, somebody pulled a blind spot back into him. All they did was dent the hood, and there's a $50,000 lawsuit. Okay? It's out of control. There needs, the pendulum has swung too far. We can't do away with it. If you're hurt legitimately, but we need to dial back to some common sense. So yes, I'd be willing to work with the governor on this, and apartment, owners and business owners, and they're over the barrel right now with some of these frivolous lawsuits. So yes, there needs to be something done. Tell business owners, companies, because it's out of control. So yes, I would be all for doing some kind of tort reform.
So luckily these gentlemen can back it. So, first of all, everything I tell you tonight, I've literally put everything on our website. I believe in hyper-transparency. Everything I've said is there to read. What I'm looking for in tort reform is a cap on non-economic damages at your economic damages. So, hey, your feelings are hurt. Pick your, I'm simplifying, but hey, your damages, you lost $100,000 between wages, medical bills, and whatever, okay, your non-economic damages, $100,000. Similarly, I would cap punitive damages at the economic damages. Those are basically the three types of damages that come in a court proceeding, or at least the major court proceedings, for those who are not aware. For example, in the McDonald's suit years ago, where the woman got $2 million, she actually didn't. She only got 20 grand. The jury hit McDonald's with a $1.85 million just punitive damage. It was just a fine to McDonald's because the jury didn't like them. The woman didn't get that. So that's also part of the problem. So those are the three things. Everything punitive and non-economic are capped at whatever the economic damages award is. I would love to see additionally, this is a bit further step, a requirement when you're filing a lawsuit, something equivalent to a grand jury, where in a grand jury the prosecution has to prove that a crime actually occurred. That's in a criminal matter. I would love to see something similar stood up in our civil space where, hey, you have to prove that you actually were harmed and you were acting within the bounds of a normal expectation of a human. If there was a bucket of water clearly labeled in their signs and you stepped in it, you can't even serve the lawsuit because you were not acting in the expectations of a normal person.
Thank you all for taking the time to dive into those issues with us here today, and there's certainly more and plenty that we'll need to talk about in the days and weeks ahead. As we wrap up here, we all in this room are looking for someone who will go down to the Georgia legislature and represent us. But at the same time, when you go down there, you will be told by the leadership group that you're a part of the team and you may need to do and compromise on some certain things to help move the ball forward. When we vote, first of all, why should people in this room vote for you to represent us? And at the same time, if we do vote for you, can we trust you to be able to say no to leadership when their interests conflict with ours? Paul?
So, yes, absolutely. I've been on a team of some kind since I was 18 years old. And, I've learned good leadership and I've seen bad leadership. I've been a steward of the taxpayers' money with budgets up to $36 million. I've had to make the hard decisions. I can't make everyone happy. I already know that. If you go into this, I cannot make everyone happy. What I can do is listen to the majority, listen to concerns. Yes, I've got to be at some position on the team. Everybody does. Even Senator Burns or Ms. Richardson on the commission. You're part of the team. I'm going to be part of the team. Yes. Will there be compromises? God, I wish we could get back there. Y'all remember when Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan would eat together at the White House to work things out. We've got to get back as a country and a state to be able to do that, to work things out again. And it's not seen as a loss necessarily, but just like the heartbeat bill. Was it perfect? No. Are we giving way more babies into this world to have a life? Absolutely. And that's how we're going to have to approach a lot of legislation. Is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not. Is it going to help us, help Georgians, and make a better place to live and keep families safe? Absolutely. And that's what I'm going to do at the state level. May not make you happy all the time, but I'm going to work hard for you guys. And like I said, everything I've done, whether it's supervising 350 people, working in the transportation department, wave of command as a fire and battery commander, everything I've done has put me in a position to work for you guys with the commitment, the excellence, the integrity, and the leadership.
I'm going for being the most transparent candidate, at least that I know of. I have put every single one of my positions and what I'm going to do about it on my website. Second Amendment, roads, infrastructure, hospitals, insurance. When I put it on a piece of paper, it was 86 pages in its bullet time. Luckily, it's broken into sections. So I'm gonna leave a stack of cards here, and I encourage you, please take one. My website's on there. The point is, you know exactly what you're getting with me. You want to know where I stand on a topic? It's already written down. I am willing to compromise if it's going in the right direction. I'm not, if something, you know, if I'm not gonna let something go in the wrong direction, but, you know, you see something on one of my positions and you say, you know, is this a hard line? No, but if where we're starting, basically anything, if where we're at right now, and it gets us at least in the right direction, I'll vote for it. I'll keep going in the right direction. You know, I want to work with everyone. Any of you that get to know me, you're gonna quickly realize I'm conservative on some things, and I'm not conservative on others. I am willing to work with everyone. Now, I mean, I'm not gonna compromise my ideas and my principles, but I wanna work with everyone. I believe that we're all Americans, and fundamentally, I'll just tell you, quite frankly, one of the things I'm most unhappy about is that all three of us, whoever wins, we have to sign a statement swearing allegiance to the Republican Party for the state of Georgia, if we win, in order to be the representative. And quite frankly, we're all Americans. I hate that I have to do that. I despise it, because I want to work with everyone to make Georgia better. And that's why I ask for all of your votes.
I got a little bit of a handle on how things go in the General Assembly. It took me 4 years, but I managed to work a bill for temporary tobacco license, something simple. It took me 4 years to work that thing, work the process through. There's times you will have to compromise. That's a little bit different than being leaned on to vote for something you're not supporting. The folks in this room, the folks in District 131 are my top priority if I go up there. Equally important is the state of Georgia as a whole. If the speaker comes to you and asks you, I need your support to get that extra vote to get something across, if it's something I can live with, I will definitely, go with the team. By and large, the legislators in Georgia General Assembly, the Republicans, are pretty much all on the same thing. You're not gonna find too many times where a committee chair or someone's gonna ask you to do something you don't want to do. And if it comes to that, first I'm gonna go, is this me letting the good be the enemy of the perfect, or is this something I just can't do because it's not good for District 131, which is the heart of Columbia County. So it all depends on the situation. I'm not a get along guy that's just there to have on state representative badge, but I'm not gonna do anything stupid to jeopardize what power I can have to get legislation passed specifically for us. So it's an art, it's a skill. I've got a little bit of an eye on how to do it already. And you can count on me. If I tell you I'm gonna do something, I'm not gonna do something. That's people that have pushed me to run. That's one of the reasons why. They know I'm a man of my word and don't care what anybody thinks. In this case, it will be, I care about District 131.
Paul, David, Russell, thank you all for being with us here tonight.